everything like that. But it's more than that. It's owning your business. It's really realizing that this is something that we are establishing and it's going to continue to grow. And there'll be levels of that, right? I believe in soon I'll be a Salesforce partner. I know other consultancies here in Los Angeles. I'll probably be at Dreamforce this year. It's a lot of very different mindset. I'm a business owner now. I own my own consultancy. This is my own firm, and I need to think like a business owner. And there's a lot of things that need to be done. It's not about just I punch my clock and I'm done. So my name is Eddie Reynolds, and I'm a Salesforce administrator slash solutions architect. Um, I'm kind of one of these older admins that have been around the ecosystem for a while. I first was exposed to the Salesforce ecosystem back in 2015. And I always tell people it's kind of a funny thing because it's on the surreal side of things because of the fact that it's 2015. I go pretty far back with Salesforce, and I actually was one of the people that I actually did my ADM 201 at Salesforce West in the Salesforce West building, and in winter 2015, and they were actually building Salesforce Tower across the street. And I told Bradley about this. It's kind of cool. I have pictures of it. Back then, it used to be called Salesforce University. Now it's Trailblazer Academy, and it was great being there. I did my ADM 201, and I was working for a medical device company, and great training and all that. But this was around the time, actually, to date back, this was actually for the first release of Lightning. And so Lightning was just coming out. And so I have like stories of dancing lightning bolts down in the lobby for the Salesforce Christmas party that I was at. And so, it was really cool. It was really cool to start to gauge the ecosystem at that level. I come from a long background in healthcare for about 15 years. I work for pretty much every insurance company you can think of on the West Coast. And so that was my background with what back then we just called it front end configuration. Now we know it as default to declarative development. And so after healthcare, after a number of years, I found myself, I used to be a fitness trainer, and I wanted to get out of healthcare for various reasons. And I was working at a medical device company, and I happened to be building some things in Oracle. I was working in their marketing department, and they had a hiring freeze, and we were back and forth on some different things. And so what happened was they lost their admin, and this person was an accidental admin as well. And so basically they lost their admin. They had heard I was looking for work, and they found themselves between a rock and a hard place, and they kind of reached out to me and said, hey, we know you have this background working with databases, and we hear you're doing great things with Oracle. You're looking for a job. And I was like, yeah. They said, do you know what a CRM is? And I was like, nope. They said, you know what Salesforce is? And I was like, nope. And so that's okay, because we know you've done a lot of things with all the contracts that you've built for healthcare. And I work with platforms called like EasyCap and MCRD and a lot of different systems with healthcare. And so they said, we want to interview you. If we like you, we're going to send you to school. And so I was like, oh, okay. Went through the interviews. I get the job, work in a couple of weeks. I'm off to San Francisco and, going from there. In 2018, some things really changed for me. And I had a nonprofit that I had heard about that was looking for some work done. And I got reached out to from a friend, and I went out and kind of helped out with this nonprofit. And then that kind of opened me up to the first time I saw NPSP, which was a totally different data model and, side of things. And even though it sits on top of, Sales Cloud, but it was different to me. I was new to nonprofit. And, but it was enough that I was helping this little nonprofit that I heard about another job. And so I went ahead and I heard about another job. I posted for the job, and I got offered the position as a senior admin. And I came in and I started working, and I was there for a number of years. And this is pre-COVID, of course. And then, of course, everything changes. We all know what happens during COVID. And then there's another layoff and fun things like that. So, but I've been very fortunate enough that I've kept busy. I'm one of these accidental admins, and I've always been a senior admin. I've always been a solo admin until most recently. I just had an amazing contract as a consultant, where actually one of my clients, which is Berklee College of Music in Boston, which is, one of the most famous institutions in the world regarding music, and I was able to land a contract with them. And so I just finished a contract with them, and I'm waiting on a callback. I have bandwidth if I'm going to continue to work with them. But it was great. I went in and I got to work with them. I built out some, minor things, just some flows and some things like that. But that was the first time I really worked with like a structured team. And so that was a little new for me. And that I just finished that. And so in liaison with this contract that we're going to talk about, after today, but as a consultant. But I've been a solo admin up to this point. And then after COVID, I work for a very large nonprofit organization in the Bay Area. I mean, first of all, I've been looking at it. I think there was like a discount that came up. I think it was Ish, one of the staff there or something like that, posted it or something and said, if you join now, in addition, you're going to get this percentage off. And I had been following, and what I had heard, which was so much about it, was I was hearing about the templates. I was hearing about all the templates that were going to be available, and then there was this whole tool kit that Bradley put up, right? That was, and he even talked about it was a lead magnet, where you could see a high-level overview of what kind of thing that you were going to be getting, as well as testimonials, and just freelancing. As an independent consultant, even separate from somebody like myself who now has an actual consultancy, and we have an LLC, and might be hiring subcontractors and things like that. But just learning freelance, coming from a background of admin, and I saw that, and the things that I saw that were just really captured me was I saw all the layouts for contracts, for dropping down a scope of work, and for being able to go ahead and lay out discovery and be able to really communicate at a professional level, and that these were templates that I could capture and doctor up and just put on my branding, and be able to go ahead and really take the background, this long seasoned background as an admin, and take that and really take it to another level with those tools. And so for me, when I saw those things and the testimonials, I basically said with my wife, I said, look, I got work, but I got to really know how to do that. And she was like, yeah, absolutely. Let's do it. And it's the best thing that I have invested in. It was the best money that we've spent. And then it was like I wrote to Bradley, it was a game changer for my company and my business, because, made me look like a rock star, from the templates to the breakdowns of all the lessons, and there's just so much material there that really positions a person like myself to operate in the consultant marketplace, if you have that experience. And they didn't even use Salesforce. They were like looking for someone that can come in and take our database, working with housing retention, and be able to go ahead and really set that up and build it out so that we can look at KPIs and metrics and so on and so forth, right? And there was like this timeline, there was a budget quoted, and what the expectations were, and send your proposal by this amount of time. And so I took a look at it, and I researched a little bit on that particular nonprofit, and I was like, okay, they don't even have a system in place. It sounds like. And so, and they actually had an email, and if you had any questions. And so I actually went ahead and I responded by email, and the director of operations responded back to me, and I sent him my LinkedIn, and he said, hey, he says, hi, Eddie. Very happy to have gotten your message. Yes, we would be very interested in seeing a proposal from you regarding Salesforce. If it's something that, if you know how to work with that system, we would love to hear more about what you could go ahead and do and X, Y, and Z. And I was like, yeah, let me put that together. And that in itself was, that was nerve-wracking, because to go ahead and put this whole proposal together and the documentation and make it sound solid and everything like that, and really come from a professional place, and then where I was going to stand on it. And so for that in itself, I was already kind of just starting to get into CAP at that time. And so I started doing, a lot of the video tutorials and looking at the templates. And so it just really, really helped me to go ahead and send out, kind of this, Miles past welcome letter, but I kind of asked some questions, and I kind of sent out, the proposal high level, and I took wording from different things that I saw, and I said, look, I could, do this and this and this and this, and took bits and pieces of templates, and, high level, this is what I think we could do. And that was able to help me to go ahead and just get it out. And that was very generic. That was just an email, and then they went ahead and responded back to me, and they said, we'd love to meet with you. And so I met with them, met with all stakeholders, and that went good. And after that, they said, okay. And then they waited like about a couple of days, and then they got back with me, and they was like, you know what, we want to move forward. So how can we move forward with next steps? And so I was like, oh, okay, great. And I said, well, if that's the case, and I need to go ahead and put a contract really quick here. And so that was game changer, because then I had to do that. And so that was huge for me, because CAP gives you all of that. There's the contracts right there. And I had to kind of decide, like, okay, here's your budget. You have this amount for a year. All right, and they're paid by a grant. And so I was like, it wasn't like I'm just going to get per, a small amount, like a block of, hours. I was like, well, if I'm going to do that, I'm going to just pitch an MSA, right? I'm going to just try to go with a monthly service agreement, right? The Holy Grail, as Bradley talks about. And so I had to look at the numbers, and I had to just kind of divide it and see what worked. And I submitted it. We went back and forth, and they countered the first time, and they were like, well, we can't do this. I said, look, if you can do this, I'm willing to go ahead and meet you here. And then the guy responded back to me, and he goes, that's fair. And he goes, okay, if you could send me a contract. And then I just went ahead and sent over an agreement. We kind of moved from there. And then I was able to get a welcome kit over. Again, CAP. And that was fantastic, because that made me look like a rock star. I took it, I grabbed it, I changed the colors, put my branding in, my logos, using the form, all the form, the template and the structure of how it's set up in CAP, and all I did was just change it, and it would look so professional, look so great, and that's what I continue to do. So that was just one example to kind of get it going.